Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome back to another World Cup Wednesday, where in today's video I'm going to be telling you who I believe is the best player for every single nation going to the World Cup at the end of the year. Now of course, obviously in today's video, we've got 32 nations to talk about and therefore 32 players to talk about.
Quick maths!
And although I'm aware that the World Cup is still many months away and form can change, I mean for all we know Neil Maupay could score 30 goals in the first half of the season for Brighton and become France's best player, although highly unlikely as we know football, anything can happen, but I still thought it would be a fun video to make. And of course 32 different nations to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, throughout this video I want you to comment in the comment section down below if you have any disagreements with me or if I picked any players that you disagree with and any players that you would have chosen instead. But of course without further ado and without me wasting any more of your time, let's jump into it. Now of course player number one that we're going to be talking about, we are going to be talking about the home nation first, and it is going to be Qatar. Now of course in terms of Qatar's best player, although there are one or two players that I was indecisive about, I have gone for their lethal striker up front, Almoz Ali. Obviously looking at the striker, has gotten 7 goals and 6 assists in 17 games in Qatarian League this season. Of course for the Qatar national team in general, has gotten 39 goals in 74 games. I do believe that Qatar have gotten themselves a very lethal striker up front, and if there's any difference maker that's going to help them advance to the next stage of this World Cup, it will be him. We then move on to the likes of Ecuador next. Now I do believe a lot of people are going to choose the likes of Villarreal left back Estepanan. Now of course, although he's been very crucial to any kind of success Ecuador or Villarreal have had over the last few years, I've gone for a player that is slightly different, as I've gone for the likes of 20-year-old Moises Caicedo.
Who?
Once again, sorry if I can't pronounce some of these names correct, but of course look at the young 20-year-old, although not a lot of people have heard about him. He is currently playing in the Premier League, has gotten 1 goal and 1 assist in 8 games for Brighton this season. Of course, looking at him in terms of World Cup qualifiers, 2 goals and 4 assists in 15 games. I believe that this man is the future of Ecuador, and you're going to see it in Qatar at the end of the year. We jump from one player that maybe not a lot of people recognize to a player that I believe the whole world should know his name, as we have Senegal next, and I've gone for the likes of Sadio Mane. Of course, Bayern Munich's brand new number 17. And of course for Senegal, although there were a lot of options from Koulibaly to Edouard Mendy and so many other world-class names, I've gone for the likes of Sadio Mane. Once again, not a name that I necessarily have to sell to you. I mean, the whole world knows him. We know how brilliant he can be up front. Of course, when it comes to goals and assists for club and country, this man is a real difference maker.
Sadio Mane. I said it last time I was on it, he's the best football player in the world.
Moving on to our final Group A team, we've got the likes of Netherlands. Now, I know a lot of people are going to choose the likes of Virgil van Dijk, and I was about a toenail away from picking Frankie de Jong.
Say what now?
As we know, these two players, when they play for the Netherlands national team, they are normally absolutely brilliant and can be compared to almost perfect in many words. But of course the player I've gone for a slightly different player, although still not a surprise, as it is going to be Memphis Depay. Now of course Memphis Depay, although not a glorious season for Barcelona this season, 12 goals in 28 games is still somewhat respectable. And of course looking at him for this Netherlands national team, in 10 World Cup qualifier games he's gotten 12 goals and 6 assists. 18 goal contributions in 10 games is absolutely lethal, and of course as we know he is chasing that goal scoring record to become Netherlands' all-time goal scorer of all time. As we know, when he plays for this Netherlands national team, he is brilliant, and I think once again we'll see it at the World Cup. Now of course jumping into our Group B teams, and of course we are going to start off with the likes of England. Now of course, although I'm very close to choosing Harry Maguire.
What did he say?
As we know, he could be the all-time Premier League goal scorer next season, whether that's in the right net or not. We're not going to be talking about that. But of course, jokes aside, I have gone for the likes of Harry Kane. Although had a slow start to the Premier League last season, one of the top goal scorers in the Premier League at the end of the day, I think ended up scoring 17 goals in the Premier League last season. As you know, when he picks up, he can be an absolutely lethal striker. Is only about 3 goals away from breaking Wayne Rooney's record for the England squad, becoming their top goal scorer of all time. As we know, Harry Kane absolutely lethal on his day and is probably England's best bet going forward. We then move on to the Iran national team. Now of course I do believe that this is a team that could hold many surprises in the World Cup, and they do have a lot of brilliant players within their squad, but at the end of the day there was just no other option for me other than the likes of Mehdi Taremi. As we know, the Porto striker had an absolutely brilliant season, 20 goals and 12 assists in 32 games, 32 goal contributions in 32 games.
Not bad, not bad.
is absolutely mental, and I do believe Iran have themselves a lethal striker up front, and I mean, I think Iran have the possibility to knock England out of this World Cup group. I think that they are going to be a serious underdog threat going into this World Cup, and I do believe that the likes of Taremi could hold a major part in that. We move from Iran to the USA. Now, of course, looking at USA, I believe a lot of people are going to end up picking the likes of Christian Pulisic.
Right, he's like the LeBron James of soccer. Definitely.
And although he can be an absolutely brilliant forward on his day, I've gone for a player that I believe is slightly more crucial for this US national men's team, as I've gone for the young midfield maestro, Weston McKennie. Now, of course, as we know, in terms of young midfielders out there, he's one of the most promising in the entire world. Of course, had an okay season at Juventus, but when you compare him to other midfielders from around the world over the last few years, when it comes to aerial battles won, when it comes to progressive carries, when it comes to touches within the opponent's penalty box, when it comes to total shots, in terms of a midfielder, he's up there with some of the best in the entire world, and I feel like in terms of controlling the midfield, Weston McKennie is going to do something absolutely special. Moving on to our final Group B team, and it is going to be the Welsh national team. Now, of course, this isn't going to be a surprise for absolutely anyone, but it has to be their all-time goal scorer of all time, Gareth Bale. Now, of course, he has moved to the likes of Los Angeles over moving to Cardiff in the Championship. I just believe he probably thinks it's better golf to be played there.
This is great banter. It really is.
Yeah, but of course, as we know, Gareth Bale, one of the best wingers in the entire world, on his day is absolutely brilliant, can still be criminally underrated, and once again, I just wasn't going to pick anyone over Gareth Bale. Jumping into our Group C teams, we start off with Argentina, and once again, it shouldn't be too many surprises, although I will say this, I was so close to picking the likes of Emi Martinez. I believe since moving between the posts for this Argentinian national team, Argentina has looked at least 4 to 5 times better, but at the end of the day, you still have to go for the little magician, Lionel Messi. Of course, although he didn't have an absolutely sparkling season at PSG, he still got 20 direct goal contributions in the league, which isn't bad at the end of the day. To get 20 goal contributions and to still be slaughtered as finished and your career is done, at the end of the day, I think that just proves how good Lionel Messi is.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Next up, we've got Saudi Arabia, and of course I do apologize in advance because it is going to be one of those names where I cannot pronounce, and it is going to be the likes of Salam Al-Dosari, obviously the left winger for the Saudi Arabian national team. As we know, this team has really grown over the last few years and has many stars, but I do believe that this left winger, when it comes to club and country, can contribute when it comes to goals, when it comes to assists. He's one of those all-around players that will make a major impact for Saudi Arabia at the World Cup. Mexico next. Now, I've heard a lot of people say that the likes of Jimenez or Lozano or so many others is going to be the definite star for Mexico at the World Cup, but everyone seems to forget their absolute superman between the posts that is going to be, I believe, the first goalkeeper I mentioned, with the likes of Guillermo Ochoa.
Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time.
Obviously is playing in the Mexican League at the moment. I remember him from his times when he used to play in La Liga for multiple different clubs, and as we know, when it comes to Ochoa, in previous World Cups that he's played in, he's been the absolute superstar for this Mexican national team, and I believe things will be no different this time around. Although another player could be the hero up front, I think Ochoa between the posts can be an absolute brick wall. Our final Group C team is next, and it is Poland. Now, once again, although I could go for this player or that player, I'm not going to beat around the bush too much. It has to be
Robert Lewandowski.
Of course, once again, absolutely smashed it in terms of goals this season. 35 goals in 34 games when it comes to the Champions League, 13 goals in 10 games. And World Cup qualifiers for Poland, 9 goals in 9 games. Once again, Robert Lewandowski absolutely scores for fun and could probably outscore most in his sleep. Once again, no surprise that I have to put him in here. Group D next, and we are going to start with the reigning World Cup champions as we have France next. Now, of course, once again, France been heavily underwhelming in the Nations League.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
And there are a lot of players I could choose. I think a lot of people are really underestimating how good Hugo Lloris has been over the last few years. Obviously, looking at the likes of Kylian Mbappe, he is always a major shout and one of the favourites to be their best player in the World Cup. You've got N'Golo Kante, Paul Pogba, and so many other stars. But after the year he's had, it has to be Karim the Dream Benzema, as we know, is really fighting it out to win the Ballon d'Or this year with 44 goals and 15 assists in 46 games. I mean, can we just talk about, what is that, 59 goal contributions in 46 games?
Hey, that's pretty good.
an absolute beast, an absolute animal. I mean, someone has to drug test that man. He has been absolutely brilliant and probably will be France's star at the World Cup. Now, of course, looking at them compared to the next team, they've got the likes of Denmark. Now, of course, looking at Denmark, once again, one of the teams that have taken the better of France in the Nations League. But looking at Denmark, I believe a lot of people will probably say the likes of Christian Eriksen since returning from his cardiac arrest. Of course, he has been absolutely brilliant and nothing short of exceptional in the midfield. But I have to once again go for the likes of Kasper Schmeichel. Once again, in terms of that Danish goalkeeper, he has been absolutely brilliant. He's built his own legacy from his father, and when it comes to the last 2-3 tournaments that Denmark have been in, when it comes to being reliable between the posts and of course saving very crucial penalties, Schmeichel has been Denmark's hero, and once again I think he'll do it again. We then move on to the likes of Australia. Now, I'm not gonna lie, there was no extremely convincing player that I could have put in here. I was tempted to go for former Brighton midfielder Aaron Moyes, but at the end of the day I've gone for the likes of good old Matthew Ryan. Of course, hasn't gotten that much game time in the Liga since moving to Real Sociedad from Brighton. Once again, as I said, there weren't any strong convincing names I could have mentioned, but just because of what I know from Matt Ryan in the past, I do believe once again a very solid option, although I'm not totally convinced about anyone for Australia.
Well, fuck you.
Moving on to our final Group D nation, we have Tunisia, obviously the African superstars that have just won the Kirin Cup. As we know, Tunisia is filled with some absolutely brilliant players, and I'm sure in the future someone like Hannibal from Manchester United could be their best player, but at the moment it has to be a player who's just signed a brand new contract with Montpellier, as it has to be Khazri. Now, of course, Khazri didn't have a great season with Saint Etienne last season, as they did get relegated, but 10 goals in 30 games for a relegated team. As we know, Khazri can be absolutely reliable when it comes to club and country, and once again I think will be no exception this time around. We then move on to a very, very interesting group, as we have Group E next. Now, between the likes of Spain, Germany, Costa Rica and Japan, there are some absolute superstars within this group. But starting off with the Spanish national team, I'm sure a lot of people are going to choose the likes of Laporte after changing allegiances from France to Spain. He's been very crucial in the Spanish defense, but a player that I just don't think we can overlook is going to be the likes of Pedri in the midfield. Once again, was obviously Spain's young player of the tournament, or the whole tournament's young player when it came to Euro 2020, obviously played in the Olympics last year. As you know, Pedri is probably the brightest young midfielder in the world out there. Obviously won the Golden Boy Award last season. Once again, when it comes to club and country, this man makes the difference. He will control the midfield at the World Cup, and once again, I don't think he'll be shy of any kind of brilliance at the World Cup. Costa Rica is next. Now, once again, I'm not going to beat around the bush too much on this. You know who it is. It's probably Costa Rica's best player of all time, as it has to be Keylor Navas between the posts. Once again, a 35-year-old goalkeeper. Wherever he's gone, he has succeeded. Won multiple Champions Leagues when he played at Real Madrid and at the likes of PSG, even at 35 years old, is keeping the likes of Gianluigi Donnarumma on the bench. Once again, Keylor Navas, nothing short of exceptional, and it wasn't a difficult decision to make. Germany is next. Now, once again, a team that is full of some absolute superstars, and although someone like Joshua Kimmich won Germany's Player of the Season last season, I haven't gone for him. I was very, very close to choose someone like Manuel Neuer, but at the end of the day, it has to be one of the most underrated players in world football over the last 10 years, with Thomas Müller. When it comes to goals and assists for Bayern Munich and the German national team, I believe that Thomas Müller should go down as a legend. Once again, absolutely brilliant, absolutely reliable, and I just couldn't not put him in here. Our final Group E nation is going to be Japan. Now, of course, there are some brilliant players within the squad, from Tomiyasu to Minamino, but the player I've gone for at the end of the day is going to be the likes of, I believe it's Daichi Kamada, once again, sorry for pronunciation. But when it came to Frankfurt this season, in the Bundesliga and the Europa League, he was absolutely brilliant and played a major role in Frankfurt winning the Europa League. Once again, this attacking midfielder for Japan, absolutely brilliant, and I think we're going to see something special at the World Cup. Moving on to our third last group, we have Group F, and of course, starting off, we have Belgium. Now, of course, a player that it's almost criminal that I didn't mention him. I'm not going to mention Kevin De Bruyne, although in my opinion, the best midfielder in the entire world. I've gone for a tiny bit of a weird one, as I have gone for Romelu Lukaku. Yes, I know he's had an absolutely awful season with Chelsea, has just been loaned back to Inter Milan. I mean, in terms of transfers, it's one of the worst ones out there.
Are you sure about it?
But when it comes for the Belgium national team, 68 goals in 120 or 102 games, Romelu Lukaku has been nothing but lethal when it comes to playing for the Belgium national team. Canada is next. Now, once again, I think I was very, very close to choosing the likes of Alphonso Davies, but I've gone for the likes of Jonathan Davids. Although it kind of slowed down towards the end of the season in League One, he started off so brilliant and ended up scoring 15 goals in 38 games in League One. Of course, scored like 3 times the amount of goals as Lionel Messi within the same league as him. I'm sure lots of people are going to joke about that.
You take that back!
But Jonathan Davids, once again, when it comes to club and country, he is a lethal, young, brilliant striker. And at 22 years old, I'm sure a big transfer is going to be lined up for him. Once again, Jonathan Davids looking so good, and he probably will be Canada's best player. We then move on to the likes of the Moroccan national team. Now, of course, although Ziyech is probably Morocco's best player, he hasn't played for the national team in quite some time now due to conflict between him and his coach. Once again, I think would add so much value to this Moroccan national team. But at the World Cup, with the current squad that they have, I have to go for the likes of Yassine Bono, obviously won La Liga's best goalkeeper of the season. And for a league that had the likes of Courtois, who many people think should be in the top 10 of the Ballon d'Or this year, that's not a bad achievement whatsoever. Our final Group F team is going to be Croatia, and I have gone for the likes of Luka Modric. Once again, winning the Champions League with Real Madrid this season, winning La Liga with them. I mean, still being an absolute beast in the midfield in his mid-30s. Once again, I don't feel like I have to explain this one too much. We then dive into our second last group, and talking about diving, we're going to be talking about Brazil, and talking even further about diving, I have Neymar Jr. Now, yes, of course, many people have their different opinions about Neymar Jr., whether he lived up to his expectation or not. But of course, one thing that you just cannot deny is how brilliant of a footballer he can be. Of course, look at him, 13 goals and 6 assists in 22 games in League One this season. Now, of course, one of the major problems when it comes to Neymar, it is no secret, but of course he does struggle with injuries. In his 5 seasons playing for PSG, he's only had 2 seasons where he's played more than 20 domestic games. I mean, that is absolutely shocking. Of course, injuries have ruined his career, but as I said, 13 goals and 6 assists in 22 games. Of course, 8 goals and 8 assists in 10 World Cup qualifier games, 16 goal contributions in 10 games. Once again, Neymar Jr., although you have struggled with injuries, still an absolute beast, and if you don't roll around this World Cup, could be a difference maker. Next up, we're going to be jumping into the likes of Serbia. Now, as we know, the Serbian national team really will produce something special. Of course, they are the team that almost knocked Portugal out of qualifying for the World Cup. They've got some brilliant players, and although the likes of Vlahovic and Mitrovic, once again, 2 lethal strikers up front, I have to go for the attacking midfielder that will stand behind those strikers, with the likes of Dusan Tadic. Of course, only a year ago, equaled the likes of Lionel Messi's assist record for a calendar year. As we know, once again, one of the most underrated players in the entire world, and I think will make a major difference for Serbia. Switzerland is next. Now, once again, Switzerland, a team that has not been playing well in the Nations League, and of course, looking at them individually, a lot of their players have struggled this season. I know a lot of people are going to choose Jan Sommer, although the likes of Mönchengladbach have struggled this season. The player that I've gone for, once again, has to be Shaqiri. As we know, Xherdan Shaqiri, once again, when he plays for either in the MLS now, or whether he plays for the Switzerland national team, absolutely brilliant when it comes to goals and assists, always ends up contributing, always ends up pulling his weight, and he will be a major difference maker here. Our final Group G nation before heading into our final group is going to be the likes of Cameroon. Now, of course, I was so close to choosing the likes of Abubakar up front. As we know, when it came to scoring goals, he did it for absolute fun in the recent AFCON competition. When it comes to Onana and so many other players, this Cameroonian national team is filled with some absolute superstars, but a player that I just could not overlook is going to be the likes of Karl Tucker Akambi. Obviously 12 goals and 5 assists in 30 games in the League One this season for Lyon. Obviously 6 goals and 2 assists in 10 games in the Europa League. And of course, looking at the African Cup of Nations, as I said, although Abubakar did score the goals, 5 goals in 7 games in the African Cup of Nations. Karl Tucker Akambi, I mean, at 29 years old, is living his absolute dream and is performing like a star. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to our final World Cup group, Group H. And of course, we start off with Portugal. Now, of course, looking at Portugal, I'm not going to beat around the bush too much once again, as I am going to choose Cristiano Ronaldo. For a man who's almost 40 years old to be the 3rd top goal scorer in the Premier League last season. Yeah, once again, I don't feel like I should have to explain that one too much. Jumping into our next team, we have the Black Stars of Ghana. Now, of course, as we know, Ghana, there are a lot of players looking to change their international allegiances to be Ghanaian for the World Cup. The likes of Tariq Lamptey, to Nketiah and Hudson-Odoi and so many other brilliant stars. But as those players are yet to play for Ghana yet and really be introduced to the squad, I'm going to go for a current Ghanaian player with the likes of Andre Ayew. Now, of course, as you know, his brother Jordan Ayew still plays for Crystal Palace this season. But looking at Andre Ayew, currently playing within the Equatorian League, as we know, therefore he's used to the climate, and 15 goals in 21 games in the Equatorian League this season. This man is absolutely lethal, and when he's played for Ghana over the last 10 or so years, he's been a crucial part to them really improving over the years. And once again, I think we'll see it at the World Cup. The second last team on this list, it is going to be Uruguay. Now, as we know, and as you guys know, I've said in multiple of my recent videos, but Uruguay truly do have a special team. Obviously, with the likes of Cavani and Suarez up front, also Darwin Núñez being introduced to this team. As we know, the likes of Valverde, absolutely brilliant for Real Madrid this season. But at the end of the day, I do believe I have to go for the likes of Luis Suarez. I was very, very close to choosing Cavani. As we know, he probably was the best of the two strikers in the 2018 World Cup. But as Cavani is getting slightly older, and so is Luis Suarez, it really is between those two. And I do think that Luis Suarez, once again, although a slow season with Atletico Madrid, I still believe will be Uruguay's best player. And that, ladies and gentlemen, takes us to our final World Cup nation and their best player for this tournament, and it is going to be South Korea. And my player to watch, I know, drumroll set in, it's going to be Heung-min Son. Once again, a golden boot, the first ever Asian to win the golden boot in the Premier League without a single penalty. Yeah, once again, I don't feel like I have to explain that one. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is it for today's video. I hope that you have enjoyed it. Once again, yes, I know form can change and lots of these players could change around by the time the World Cup rolls around. And of course, I want you guys to put down whether you have any disagreements with me in the comment section down below. Tell me if you disagree, if Harry Kane is England's best player or Cristiano Ronaldo is Portugal's best player. I want to hear your opinions in the comment section down below. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. Until next time, this has been Finn, FYNN. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe, I guess. But guys, until next time, I'll see you soon. Cheers.